The Avengers are a long-standing Marvel team that have been around since 1963, but while the team has been around for decades, their roster has not always stayed the same. In recent years, we've seen tons of interesting and exciting changes to the lineup, with lots of powerful characters being welcomed on board. Let's check out some as we count down the top 10 most powerful new Avengers. Number 10. Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel was once Carol Danvers and is now Kamala Khan, and of course for this list we're focusing on Kamala, who was a new addition to the Avengers team in 2015, after making her first unnamed appearance only 2 years earlier in 2013 in the comics. Kamala is a huge Carol Danvers fan, which is what inspired her to take up the mantle Miss Marvel after Carol dropped it, taking up the Captain Marvel mantle instead herself. Kamala as Miss Marvel has powers which allow her to alter her body's physiology, allowing her to stretch, change size and shape, and in theory, straight up shapeshift. Her powers come from Inhuman heritage, which was activated by her exposure to the Terrigen bomb. Kamala joined the team for a time during all new, all different Avengers, and remains a fan favorite hero at Marvel Comics. And to clarify before we move on to point 9, this is going to be a list of Avengers that have recently come onto the team as opposed to new Avengers, which is kind of its own thing. There's a lot of new Avengers, so I just want to clarify that. Number 9. Wasp. Not the same Wasp who years ago was actually the leader of the Avengers for a while. Nuh-uh, we are not talking about Janet Van Dyne here, we are talking about Nadia Van Dyne, who despite her seemingly misleading name is actually the daughter of Hank Pym and his first wife, Maria Travoia. After her mother Maria was kidnapped and later killed, Nadia ended up being raised in the Red Room, considered a valuable asset due to her natural aptitude for science and academia, believed to be somewhat in part due to the fact that she was Hank's naturally born daughter. Nadia would eventually escape the Red Room and attempt to locate her father in the US, only to find out that he had recently died during a fight against Ultron. Nadia felt compelled to meet her stepmother, Janet, desiring to become the new Wasp. The two ended up getting along well, and Janet even gave Nadia her blessing to take her last name, seeing her as family. Hence, Nadia became both Nadia Van Dyne and the new Wasp, also going on to join the Avengers team. Number 8. Spider-Man. Peter Parker as Spider-Man has of course teamed up with the Avengers before, but Miles Morales as Spider-Man is a newer addition, not just in terms of the Avengers team, but also still relatively new in terms of him existing in 616. Miles Morales is originally a Spider-Man who hails from the Ultimate Comics line originating in Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe. He was given a new home on Earth 616 after his world had been destroyed as a result of showing kindness to and sharing food with Molecule Man during the Secret Wars event. True story. Thank goodness for pocket cheeseburgers. Miles has a power set very similar to Peter's in many ways, but also has a few unique abilities of his own. He can shock his opponents with venom blasts and can sneak up on them with his spider camouflage, which he can use to appear invisible. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn about even more newest additions to the Avengers we've seen in recent years, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Number 7. Valkyrie. Valkyrie is Jane Foster, who was originally known as Thor when she joined the Avengers team the first time around. Jane ended up becoming the new Thor after Thor Odinson, the original Thor, was deemed unworthy. As the new Mighty Thor, editorially referred to at times as Lady Thor, Jane joined the Avengers team in the all-new, all-different Avengers series in 2015. Currently in the comics, Jane is no longer the Mighty Thor, but was welcomed into Asgardia by Odin, who gave her a new title and power set, making her a new Valkyrie. To clarify, I'm saying Asgardia because she was kind of like welcome to the whole world of Asgard, but she didn't go live on Asgard or anything specific like that. Currently, Valkyrie is the mantle that she uses. Being imbued with the spirit of Valkyrie Brunhilde gives Jane the strength and power set of an Asgardian warrior. In addition, there are specific powers that are also granted to Valkyries like herself. She can teleport, has death perception, and can see ghosts, in addition to being a super strong and capable fighter. Number 6. Starbrand. I kinda miss when Brandy was just like a little Starbrand baby, but of course this is comics and heroes can't stay babies forever. In fact, they can't even stay a baby for more than a year apparently, especially if they're joining the Avengers, which I kinda get. Technically, the young Starbrand, Baby Selby, later given the first name Brandy, was in the care of the Avengers, not really specifically on the team, kinda sorta like their ward. But despite being one of the youngest heroes to ever be affiliated with that team, this little Starbrand also would often help the team out on missions, being so insanely powerful. Starbrand possesses the Starbrand, which grants her a great amount of basically cosmic power. She is capable of interstellar flight and flight in general, energy manipulation and projection, creating energy blasts, and technically should also be super durable and have some level of healing factor. The Starbrand's power is believed to be potentially infinite when it comes to their power levels, making Starbrand one of the most powerful members on the team, in baby form, child form, or young adult form as she currently is as of the end of issue 52 of the current 2018 Avengers series. Number 5. Ghost Rider. While Starbrand might have the greatest potential for power, and we aren't sure entirely what she's capable of just yet, Robbie Reyes is a bit more experienced when it comes to his powers, and even when he was less experienced, he actually accidentally killed one of the previous Starbrands, Kevin Connor, in Marvel Legacy. So for those reasons, I thought we should give him a bit of a boost when it comes to his ranking on this list. Robbie Reyes first appeared in the comics scene in 2014 in all-new Ghost Rider issue number 1. He is an all-new Ghost Rider, just like the series claims. During a street race gone wrong, Robbie was killed and ended up possessed by the ghost who haunted the car that he was driving, becoming the new Ghost Rider. He joined up with the Avengers recently in the comics, and I think he makes a great addition to the team. I personally love Robbie Reyes, so yeah, I'm here for it. Number 4. Winter Hulk. While Jennifer Walters as She-Hulk may have joined the Avengers long ago, first joining up back in the 80s, she's gone through a lot of changes since then. One recent and major one, which also returned her to her smaller, smarter, more playful and sassy, yet still very powerful form, happened recently in Avengers comics. For a brief time, She-Hulk, then known as just Hulk, ended up becoming Winter Hulk. Winter Hulk happened as a result of Jen allowing herself to be kidnapped by the Winter Guard of Russia to try and figure out what they were up to. What devious things are they planning? In the end, they attempted to mind wipe and brainwash Hulk to turn her into one of their agents. And they kinda succeeded. Although the process was interrupted, for a brief time Jen acted as their agent, Winter Hulk. However, as Winter Hulk, Jen still managed to fight against her programming, and alert her fellow Avengers when sent to attack Namor and Atlantis. In the end, Winter Hulk was forced to absorb a ton of radiation to protect the citizens of Atlantis. She managed to discharge the gamma radiation she had absorbed safely, and as a result was returned to her original form, ultimately deciding to retire from the Avengers team after these events and return to practicing law. And now we have a new She-Hulk series that I have heard nothing but good things about. I really need to get reading my first issue. Number 3. Phoenix. While Phoenix is definitely one of the most powerful superheroes to be on the Avengers team, her history with them is a bit more lengthy than you might initially think, which is why I ranked her a little bit lower on this list than I normally would. Phoenix herself was back on the original Avengers team, the prehistoric Avengers, or the Avengers of 1 million BC. This avatar for Phoenix was known as Firehair. However, Firehair only made her first appearance even in 2017 in the comics, so she's also kinda new in a way, even though she's super old. Does that make sense? Maya Lopez, aka Echo, is the current host of the Phoenix Force and the current Phoenix, who also finds herself on the Avengers team. Her being Phoenix is new, but her being on the Avengers team is not new. She rejoined the team in 2021 as Phoenix, which is quite new, like I said, but she actually was a member of the Avengers way back in 2005, when she was using the mantle of Ronin. Still, Maya being Phoenix and being part of the Avengers altogether is quite fresh right now, despite both the Phoenix Force's history with the prehistoric team and Maya's own history with the present day team. And of course, Phoenix is one of the most powerful entities in the entire Marvel universe. So despite her being kind of a new old combo thing, we have to show respect to the blazingly brilliant and powerful Maya Lopez, aka Echo, aka Phoenix, on this list. Number 2. Cable. Nathan Summers ended up joining the Avengers team at a time when Captain America was seeking to present a show of unity. Hence, Cable ended up being on the Avengers Unity division, which was meant to bring together Avengers and X-Men after events of Avengers vs. X-Men had created tension between the two superhero groups of Earth. Series-wise, the team was known as the Uncanny Avengers, with Cable joining up as early as issue number 4. Cable is an extremely powerful telepath and telekinetic due to him being the offspring of X-Men member Cyclops and his wife at the time, Mr. Sinister created clone of Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor. Despite Maddie being his birth mother, Jean has also been like a mother to Nate after she was implanted with the memories of basically raising him, making her kind of like his telepathically retcon mom, with Maddie becoming more like a surrogate mother in terms of her relationship with Nate, formerly known to her as Baby Christopher. Oh, baby Christopher. Number 1. Avenger Prime. Avenger Prime is kinda like all of the Avengers merged together. At least, that's what the original version of this character was like. They made their first appearance in the 2013 Mighty Avengers series, but another character with that name also recently reappeared in the 2021 free comic book day Avengers and Hulk comic. They showed up in the Avengers portion of that double feature story comic. Here, Avengers Prime is the leader of the Deathlock Avengers forces, who basically stands guard at the God Quarry, seeking to watch, protect, and warn against major multiversal threats and potential chronal collapses. Presumably, this is some version of Avenger Prime that decided to stay omnipotent and bonded together. At least that's what I'm assuming. Some people are assuming different things. When we saw Avenger Prime last, or an alternate version of them if you will, they were created using a ritual which allowed the team of Mighty Avengers to bond together. Technically, Avenger Prime stands to be the most powerful of the Avengers, as they should be made up of one or more teams or rosters potentially combined together. Now, of course, some people believe that Avenger Prime is actually some sort of alternate version or some future version of Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, but we don't really know for sure yet. Whoever they are though, they definitely seem to have a lot of time, a lot of power, and a lot of resources on their hands, especially for being a shadowy figure. There are the Avengers we all know, and then there are those we don't. Some of them are well-known characters you wouldn't expect to see, and some are completely new to comics and the Avengers. While others on the team might have the greatest potential for power, Robbie Reyes is a bit more experienced when it comes to his powers. And even when he was less experienced, he accidentally killed one of the previous Star Brands, Kevin Connor, in Marvel Legacy, which is pretty crazy. For those reasons, I thought we should include him on this list. Robbie Reyes first appeared in 2014 in All New Ghost Rider issue number 1. While debuting in the comics during the All New initiative, like the title claims, he is also an all-new Ghost Rider. During a street race gone wrong, Robbie was killed and ended up possessed by the ghost who haunted the car he was driving, becoming the new Ghost Rider. He joined up with the Avengers around 2018, joining them in their battle against the Dark Celestials. Personally, Robbie is actually one of my favorite Ghost Riders, and I think Ghost Rider in general as a character makes a great addition to the Avengers team. Ghost Rider's just so powerful. Weapon America is one of the members of a multiversal team of Avengers that we saw appear in Avengers Assemble Omega. This was a big comic with a lot of new Avengers, both in terms of characters who are new and new recruits to the team in general. First introduced, Weapon America is a member of the Howling Commandos on his Earth, Earth 20504. He seems to be a combination of multiple characters in terms of his appearance, abilities, and likeness, appearing as a blend of Captain America, Wolverine, with some nuke mixed in as well. He's got the nuke tattoo and everything. And also, yes, if you were wondering, this is one of the Avengers that's also part of Avengers Prime team. Loki Avengers Prime, not 2013 Avengers Prime. Next up, Mr. Sweeney, aka the Bruiser? Now, while the Bruiser isn't really an Avengers member technically, he did recently join up with the group in a way as an ally. We recently learned in the comics that the true identity of Mr. Sweeney was that of, yeah, Bruiser. Initially, the Bruiser was a villain who made his first appearance in the 80s in the comics in Avengers issue 201. That's the direct issue after the tragically iconic issue 200. Yeah, that issue 200. In issue 201 though, Jarvis actually takes on the Bruiser on his own. He finds out that the Bruiser has been terrorizing the neighborhood of the Bronx, and specifically Jarvis's mom, who lives there. In retaliation, Edwin Jarvis takes on the Bruiser himself, refusing to call the Avengers for a matter that he feels can just be easily handled with some help from himself by the neighborhood. Jarvis boxes the Bruiser and inspires the people in the neighborhood to unite and rise up against the Bruiser, and in the end, the Bruiser is basically forced to admit defeat and he ends up retreating. Now it seems years later, appearing as Mr. Sweeney, that the Bruiser has turned over a new leaf and instead of fighting against Jarvis has actually found employment as his assistant. I kind of love it. More an Avengers ally here than a straight up Avenger, but this was such a cute little cameo and like callback to the 80s, I just had to mention it. It's so random and I kind of love it. Although weirdly, this version of Nighthawk was actually a Mephisto creation. Kyle Richmond, or this version of him anyways, normally of the Squadron Supreme, ended up being recruited by the Avengers to help them in their fight against Mephisto. Perhaps it was because of his desire to do good as he is a hero, or his personal agenda against Mephisto, but for a time Nighthawk did join the team. Nighthawk is not normally considered to be a new character and has joined up with Captain America's Secret Avengers in the past as well during Civil War I, at least he did for a very short time, but technically that was a different Nighthawk, as this one is the one that is believed to have come into existence in 2018 as a construct that Mephisto created to be a member of Agent Phil Coulson's Squadron Supreme of America. Yeah. Oh, comics. I'm not exactly sure when this next member of the Avengers joined up with the team fully, specifically anyways, but I think in regards to the comics it would be somewhere around early 2023, when the Multiversal Avengers were coming together as a team in the culmination of Jason Aaron's Avengers run. Yeah, Avengers Prime Multiversal Avengers, that Multiversal Avengers. Captain Carter was one of the heroes who appeared there. Now if you are an MCU Peggy Carter or Haley Atwell fan like me, then you know Captain Carter from Multiverse of Madness and Marvel's What If animated series. But guess what? It also seems this character, or some other version of this character at least, also joined up with the Avengers in the comics as well. She appears throughout the major final story arc of Aaron's run, appearing in the main Avengers series, in Avengers Forever, and in Avengers Assemble Omega. This version of Carter came to be in the place of Steven Rogers. On her Earth, it was Peggy, not Steve, who became the super soldier between the two of them, and so she becomes Captain Carter instead of Captain America. For those that don't know. You know, we're in the future when you are recruiting a whole city to your cause. This is exactly what happened here with the Impossible City. The Impossible City was initially used as a base who was in the group of multiversal heroes. Initially in the comics, we aren't actually informed who were the ones that were behind that. What we do know though is after they left their base, their prisoners escaped. This villainous troop was known as the Ashen Combine. The Ashen Combine would then make the city their own base, and it would be the place they had their final stand against the Avengers. When the Ashen Combine was defeated, the Impossible City actually offered to join up with the Avengers team. Oh yeah, the Impossible City is also aptly named because it's sentient as well. Pretty impossible stuff. The Avengers accepted the offer, and as such, the Impossible City became an official member of the Avengers team. So yeah, now they have a whole city on their team. Nathan Summers ended up joining the Avengers team at a time when Captain America was seeking to present a show of unity. Hence, Cable ended up on the Avengers Unity division, which was meant to bring together the Avengers and X-Men after the events of Avengers vs. X-Men had created tension between the two superhero groups of Earth. Series-wise, the team was known as the Uncanny Avengers, with Cable joining up as early as issue 4. Technically, this is also volume 3 of Uncanny Avengers if you wanted to go find it yourself and give it a read. Cable is an extremely powerful telepath and telekinetic due to him being the offspring of X-Men member Cyclops and his wife, Mr. Sinister created clone of Jean Grey made from a spark of the Phoenix, Madeline Pryor. Despite Maddie being his birth mother, Jean has also kind of been like a mother to Nate after she was implanted with the memories of raising him, making him kind of like her retconned in a telepathic way son, with Maddie becoming more like kind of a surrogate in terms of her relationship with Nathan and just kind of how she's treated in the comics. I don't agree with it, but that's where it is. Formerly known to her as Baby Nathan, and back in the day as Baby Christopher. Constantly called Baby Christopher back in the day. And I feel like now when I call him Baby Christopher, people are like, do you know who we're talking about? It's Nathan Summers. And I'm like, yes, but remember when he was Baby Christopher? It's one of his names, so I guess it kind of makes sense. Joining up in the same issue as Nighthawk, who we talked about earlier, was Brandy Selby, aka the cosmic hero known as Starbrand. Starbrand was initially an infant whom the team adopted and raised together. She would rapidly grow up while in their care and would ultimately end up joining the team as one of their most powerful members. However, her time with the team was short-lived, and in the end she would sacrifice herself as a hero to protect the rest of the Avengers. Also, note to self, if I have a baby and I'm about to perish, maybe don't leave that baby in the care of the Avengers, because it might not work out. Avenger Prime was initially a name used by a character who was essentially all of the Avengers merged together. That version of the character made their first appearance in the 2013 Mighty Avengers series, but another character with that name also appeared much later on in the 2021 Free Comic Book Day Avengers and Hulk comic. There, Avengers Prime was shown to be the leader of the Deathlock Avengers forces who stand guard at the God Quarry, seeking to watch, protect, and warn against major multiversal threats and potential chronal collapses. We'd also come to learn that this Avenger Prime was actually an alternate reality version of Loki, who leads his own massive multiversal Avengers team. Yes, the one that characters like Weapon America appear on, and the Deathlock Avengers. Loki was forced to do this after coming to accept his very important role in the formation of the Avengers across the multiverse and across time. After attempting to dodge their assembling in his own timeline and acting as his Earth's sole protector, he accidentally caused the extermination of all life in his universe. Whoops. After attempting to end it all, Loki woke up in the God Quarry and found himself tasked with protecting all of time, assembling his own extensive team of Avengers to do so. But he was pretty embarrassed, so he mostly just kept to himself and stayed in the shadows. The Phoenix made her first appearance as a member of the Avengers a long time ago, way back in the past in 1 million BC, joining up with the prehistoric or Stone Age Avengers. How does this make her a new member? Well, while in canon this happened a long time ago, it wouldn't be revealed to us readers to have happened until the modern day, as the Avengers of 1 million BC first appeared in 2017 in Marvel Legacy issue number 1. So it's a super old character, but appeared pretty recently.
To be an Avenger is an honor that many Marvel heroes strive for, and every year more and more make the cut. Heroes like Eric Brooks, or as most of us know him, Blade. Blade has been around since 1973, so it actually took me by surprise when I learned that he didn't become an actual mainline Avenger until Avengers Volume 8, number 12. Born with an extremely unique vampire physiology, Eric used his powers to wipe out evil vampires, taking on the title of Daywalker. Now, to be fair, he was once part of the Mighty Avengers before being invited to join the main Avengers team by Black Panther. But while on the Avengers, he did a lot. Like, I mean a lot. He ended a vampire civil war, saved Ghost Rider in hell, battled the Dark Elf Malekith in the War of the Realms, helped stop the Egyptian god Khonshu from taking over the entire Earth, and he recruited Dracula and his vampire nation to help fight Null, the symbiote god, and King in Black. Blade came to the Avengers with a heck of a lot of supernatural expertise, and he was amazing on the team until he left to be Dracula's own sheriff, which... what? Roberto da Costa, the mutant who also goes by the name Sunspot, first ever joined the Avengers, accepting Captain America's offer alongside the mutant Cannonball. Sunspot came across as a bit of a comedic member of the team, and he didn't really seem to take his Avenger status as seriously as others did, but that pretty quickly turned around. Where Iron Man used to fill in the laid-back billionaire role on the team, Roberto stepped into that role pretty smoothly and got the team out of quite a few problematic moments. It's arguable to say that he really stepped into his own as an Avenger when he bought the whole of AIM and used the organization to create his own Avengers team in New Avengers Volume 4, and then again in US Avengers. His time as an Avenger not only boosted up his status from a C-list hero to one in the spotlight, but it also brought multiple creative Avengers series, which as comic book fans is something that we will not be upset about, ever. Maya Lopez, also known as Echo, is honestly really cool. She has really cool photographic reflexes just like Taskmaster. She's been Ronin for a time and even been a host for the Phoenix Force, and she also became an Avenger. Now, initially Maya was actually a bit of a villain, being manipulated by the Kingpin in order to try and take down Daredevil. Luckily though, Maya was able to discover the truth about Kingpin and the lies he fed her, and that pushed her into reshifting her focus to become a hero. It was from there that she became Ronin, and thanks to a good old recommendation from Daredevil himself, she met up with Captain America and started working with the New Avengers in 2005. She would eventually be brought down by Elektra, and she would eventually be saved and revived, helped out during World War Hulk, Secret Invasion, and she even worked very closely with Moon Knight for a while before being revived yet again, and was eventually granted the Phoenix Force. She would eventually join the actual true Avengers in Avengers Volume 8, number 54 from 2022, facing the Multiversal Masters of Evil. Next up, a former Marine and scientist turned superhero, Adam Brashear is not only one of the strongest heavy hitters in Marvel Comics, but he is also one of the smartest characters around. Blue Marvel didn't actually make his debut in Marvel Comics until 2008, but when he showed up, his origin story retroactively placed him in the Marvel Universe way back in the day. His origins take place in the 1960s during a project to use antimatter as an energy source. Adam and his best friend Connor were caught in an explosion that turned Adam into a living, stable antimatter reactor, which should in theory pretty much impossible, and it gave him an insane amount of power. Brashear would rejoin the superhero community alongside Luke Cage's 1970s Mighty Avengers, which in the real world happened in 2014, before he went on to join with Captain Marvel and Black Panther on the Avengers adjacent team known as the Ultimates in 2016, and most recently, he joined the Defenders and went rather, beyond. Next up, Eden Fessy, aka Manifold, first appeared as an incredibly underrated hero in Jonathan Hickman and Brian Michael Bendis' Secret Warriors series, alongside a group of other legacy heroes recruited by Nick Fury in 2009. Now, Manifold is a mutant with the insanely godlike ability to manipulate space, which he most often uses as a teleporter. He was actually the student to another mutant teleporter known as Gateway, but following with writer Jonathan Hickman, Manifold joined the Avengers in Avengers Volume 5 in 2014/2015 for one of the greatest Avengers runs we have had in a long time. As the Avengers expanded to a bigger scope than they have ever done before, Manifold was pretty instrumental in some of their galaxy-wide conflicts, and he even sacrificed himself during Secret Wars. Thankfully though, he was brought back and has become one of the most powerful and versatile mutants and Avengers. Now there have been multiple Nova Primes throughout the history of the universe. Richard Rider is absolutely the main one, and he is fantastic, but when we first got Samuel Alexander in Point One Number 1 in 2011, he brought just a whole different vibe. Granted, being a younger guy with some huge shoes to fill, he doesn't exude the same kind of power that Richard Rider does, but that doesn't make him any less powerful. Sam has grown into a hero all of his own. He's fought alien warlords, evil Avengers doppelgangers, and interdimensional monsters, and he absolutely deserves the Nova mantle. While he can be reckless from time to time, thanks to his youth, independence, and loyalty, he still got offered a spot on 2016's all-new, all-different Avengers number 1 by none other than the God of Thunder, Thor himself. Unfortunately for the Avengers though, Nova left the team pretty soon after with a few other younger heroes to form the Champions. And one of those young heroes was none other than Miles Morales. In the aftermath of the multiversal event Secret Wars, the second Spider-Man of the Ultimate Universe, aka Earth 1610, joined Marvel's main Earth 616 reality, and not too long after that, he also joined the Avengers in 2016 alongside Nova and Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. Now Miles has essentially all the same abilities as Spider-Man himself, but then he has some that are wholly his own, and they're actually pretty cool. His signature difference in my eyes is his venom. It's like a form of bioelectricity that he can emit from his body and use in some really cool ways, like in punches, beams, and blasts, and he can even infuse it into his own webbing. Miles is also able to use a spider camouflage to make his whole body and even his clothes and costume go invisible, but as I already said with Nova, these younglings weren't on the Avengers team for very long, leaving to form the Champions. But for Miles, his powers and his awesome mind actually lent a lot to the Avengers while he was there, and in return, he learned a heck of a lot from the older heroes while he was on that team. The Smashers of the Shi'ar Imperial Guard are human-like aliens using exospecs to grant themselves powers. Now for a long time, Vril Rock was the Soul Smasher, but he unfortunately met his end at the hands of the incredibly powerful mutant Vulcan. Isabel Izzy Kane is the granddaughter of World War II hero and Captain America buddy, Captain Terror. She was first ever introduced in Avengers Volume 5 number 1, and Izzy found the exospecs of a Smasher on the farm that she was raised on. These exospecs spoke to her and beckoned her to put them on, giving her access to the Smasher's powers. Izzy then traveled to the Shi'ar world of Chandalar, where she became a sub-guardian of the Imperial Guard. Now after returning back home to Earth, Izzy's grandfather with his last words told her to become a hero, and he gave her Captain America's business card, which, I'm sorry, that's kind of hilarious. Now being the first and only human recruit of the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, Asgard, gaining super strength, speed, energy blasts, and flight, plus her adventurous spirit and her grandfather's legacy. Captain America brought her onto the Avengers pretty quickly and with no contest, making her a big part of the team's spacefaring adventures. Vani Gast was the daughter of the Grand Master, one of the Elders of the Universe. She grew up exploring the cosmos by her father's side. Now, when her father's title was threatened, she was granted teleportation powers that also had the added benefit of being able to alter people's memories. Vani took up the hero name Voyager and headed to Earth. Now, Voyager met up with the Avengers and used her powers to insert herself into their memories as Valerie Vector, a founding member of the team who had bit the dust in the battle against the Squadron Sinister, which had removed her from existence and from everyone's memory. The Avengers' longtime butler, Edwin Jarvis, had collapsed due to an illness shortly before Voyager's arrival, so naturally, when Voyager arrived to the hospital Jarvis had just woken up in, he exposed the truth that Voyager had never actually been an Avenger. While this obviously didn't do her any favors, and she was pretty much booted from the team, she did admit that this was all the plan of her father, while she was actually inspired by the heroes and helped the Avengers to save the day a few times. And last up, the Avengers Unity Squad, first appearing in Uncanny Avengers, was an attempt to try and mend the human-mutant conflict after the events of Avengers vs. X-Men. The idea? To take some X-Men, to take some Avengers, and just put them together. It's kind of surprising that it really hasn't been done before. Now, one of the first main recruits, handpicked by Captain America himself in Uncanny Avengers Volume 1, Number 1 from 2012, was none other than Anna Marie, aka Rogue. Being a former villain and still mourning the loss of Charles Xavier, Rogue caused quite a bit of friction on this new team. She originally joined in order to keep an eye on the Scarlet Witch, who was also in the team of heroes, and as most of you know, caused quite a devastating blow to the mutant community with M-Day. But as time passed, Rogue became one of the most valuable members of the team, even growing to become its leader. But if we are talking about most powerful, while Rogue was on this team, she managed to absorb all the major Marvel heroes' powers and fought off a Celestial. So I'd say that's pretty darn powerful.
Number 10. Dark Avengers. The Dark Avengers were first introduced in their own comic book series in Dark Avengers issue number 1. Not everyone is a fan of them, because while they're kind of Avengers, they're also kind of go against a lot of the things that the original team stood for. The Dark Avengers are led by Norman Osborn, who gets to make his own organization, Hammer, to safeguard the world's safety following the crumbling of S.H.I.E.L.D. and after his victory against the Skrull Queen, whose death was brought about by Osborn and was also televised, making him a worldwide hero in the eyes of many, despite the fact that, yeah, he was still definitely a villain. Still, although this team was comprised of villains, they did aim to do good things, just in their own way. In truth, they became more a team of anti-heroes than anything, with just a dash of villainous escapades organized by their leader, Osborn, who at this point went by Iron Patriot. Sort of like the Iron Man of this Dark Avengers crew. Number 9. Avengers Academy. Avengers Academy was a series that replaced the Avengers The Initiative series. As that series ended, this one began. The Avengers Academy team was a group of superpowered youths who were selected to be trained as new Avengers. Although originally the teens thought that they had been selected due to the promise that they showed, it was later revealed that they had been selected because of the great risk that they would ultimately become villains. In fact, 6 of the teens were actually working for Norman Osborn during the Dark Avengers Hammer Dark Reign days, and likely could have ended up being trained by him to become Dark Avengers, should that whole situation have continued to play out. However, when the Avengers found out about them, they instead decided to create the Avengers Academy in an attempt to repurpose and redeem those youths, so basically took them in themselves. Hank Pym acted as the headmaster of this academy, while Tigra, Justice, Quicksilver, and Speedball took on roles as teachers. Number 8. Secret Avengers. This team operated for 3 years in the comics. It was led by Commander Steve Rogers and Sharon Carter. After the dissolution of Hammer and the Dark Avengers, Steve was now left to decide what should come after. Instead of reforming S.H.I.E.L.D. or the Avengers, he decided to secure global safety through the use of various smaller Avengers teams. Secret Avengers was one of those teams that he himself led, and was a black ops unit used for covertly dealing with the problems that Osborn, Hammer, and the Dark Avengers had left behind and created during their reign. Members included Black Widow, Ant-Man, Beast, Moon Knight, War Machine, Nova, and a Valkyrie named Brunhilde. They were eventually disbanded by Hawkeye following their fight against the Descendants. But man, was it a fun and weird run. Seriously, if you haven't checked out Secret Avengers, You should maybe do it. It's pretty strange. I kinda love it. Number 7. Mighty Avengers. Granted, there is more than one Mighty Avengers team, but for the purpose of this list, we're talking about Luke Cage's Mighty Avengers. This team of Avengers formed to look after the Earth after the main Avengers team was forced to roll out when the Builders threatened the entire universe. Yeah, that was a thing. Remember that? During the Avengers' absence, Thanos returned to Earth and the Mighty Avengers stepped in to protect their people and their planet. The team was led by Luke Cage and included such heroes as Spectrum, White Tiger, and Blue Marvel, as well as Superior Spider-Man, who at one point attempted to overtake leadership of the team, fighting Luke Cage for it. Number 6. AIM. I know what you're thinking. AIM? Wait, but what? AIM was originally the villainous organization of genius-level scientists, also known as Advanced Idea Mechanics, who aimed, get it, aimed, to overthrow the government and rule the world using technological advancements. So what are you talking about, Amanda? How can they be an Avengers team? Well, this organization eventually was taken over by mutant and hero Sunspot, Roberto da Costa. Sunspot renamed the organization Avengers Idea Mechanics and set out to reclaim and reform it. He used the organization for good, filling it with more noble, brilliant minds who developed tech to help with Sunspot's new Avengers rescue missions. Roberto basically merged his new Avengers team with AIM to create this new technologically advanced Avengers team. Previously, that new Avengers team was actually known as the Multiversal Avengers, and originally they were all about discovering the reason behind the gradual disintegration of the multiverse. Number 5. All new, all different Avengers. This was both its own new team of Avengers in a series, as well as being known as the name for kind of an entire Marvelverse soft relaunch, including a variety of spin-offs that took place in 2015, known as the All New, All Different verse. This relaunch included a variety of series, including one of my faves, All New Wolverine. But for the purpose of this list, we'll be talking about the All New, All Different Avengers founding team and the individual comic series itself that was about them. Following Secret Wars, this All New, All Different Avengers team was formed. Originally it was comprised of Iron Man, Sam Wilson, who was Captain America at the time, Miss Marvel aka Kamala Khan, Miles Morales as Spider-Man, young Sam Alexander as Nova, Vision, and Jane Foster's Thor. Iron Man would act as their leader, but this team wouldn't even officially refer to themselves as Avengers until the very end of issue number 3 of their series. This was a refresh on the Avenger team, one that had no tower, no funding, and wasn't officially even recognized yet. Over time they would become more established, but the all new, all different team would only exist as it was for 15 issues, up until the events of Civil War II. Number 4. A-Force. The first all-female team of Avengers. It took us over 50 years, but eventually we got there. This team had 2 self-titled comic series, though sadly both were very short. The team was originally led by She-Hulk, and its members would include Captain Marvel, Medusa, Singularity, Dazzler, and Nico Minoru. A-Force originally took their name from the name for the defenders of the matriarchal nation of Arcadia on Battleworld, where She-Hulk reigned as a baroness. The team was created during the Secret Wars event involving Emperor Doom's Battleworld, and would continue to exist up until the events of Civil War II, when She-Hulk was put into a coma. It's kinda how that whole thing starts. Well, it's part of the start anyways. Number 3. The US Avengers. The US Avengers is a strange and eclectic team, but also a fun and patriotic one. They worked alongside S.H.I.E.L.D. but were also considered independent of the organization. This team actually coincided with another Avenger related one that I mentioned earlier, Avengers Idea Mechanics, the new AIM. Sunspot, who was operating under the popular alias of Citizen 5, led and created this team. It was comprised of a quirky yet popular group of heroes, including Robert Maverick's Red Hulk, Cannonball, Tony Ho's Iron Patriot, Squirrel Girl, Pod, and the time-displaced daughter of Luke Cage and Jessica Jones from an alternate future known as Danielle Cage, aka her alternate universe's Captain America. I love Danielle Cage, she's pretty cool. Number 2. Occupy Avengers. I almost said Octopus Avengers, which is not a thing. But maybe it should be a thing, I don't know, they could be a team, they're all octopuses. This series and Avengers spin-off was a small one. It consisted mainly of Hawkeye and followed his adventures on a path for redemption following the events of Civil War II. Let's not forget that it was Hawkeye's arrow that was deemed responsible for the death of Bruce Banner, although Banner had asked that Hawkeye mercy kill him should it be necessary. Although he was acquitted of all murder charges, Hawkeye still felt guilty and sought to make things right. His way of doing this? A more grassroots approach to heroism involving basically a community outreach. Clint focused on more real-world problems that threatened people, like fixing up Santa Rosa, New Mexico's water supply. During the run of Occupy Avengers, Hawkeye would be joined by other heroes such as Red Wolf and Nightshade, who would join him on his quest. Number 1. Savage Avengers. This ruthless team of Avengers is basically one of the newest anti-hero Avenger teams to form, and is more anti-hero than our number 10 spot, the Dark Avengers, because all the members are still definitely the good guys, but are also known for being violent killers as well. This team was formed out of a team-up involving Wolverine and Conan the Barbarian. It consists of Elektra, Dr. Voodoo, formerly known as Brother Voodoo, Elektra, Punisher, and Venom. The team was assembled to combat the combined threat of spellcasters and spell traders from Conan's world and Marvel's main continuity evil secret ninja organization known as The Hand.
In at number 10, Deadpool. With the merger between Disney and Fox, there have been tons of rumors surrounding the members of the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and even the Merc with a Mouth coming over to the new Avengers. The most likely is Deadpool. He has a history with the Avengers, and the only thing that Disney executives have to work out is translating the R-rated star into the more family-friendly audience of the MCU. According to online rumors, Deadpool is set to appear in the end credits scene of Black Widow, spoiler alert, and therefore will be joining the new team of Avengers very soon. We are still waiting on Kevin Feige to confirm, but he did note that the movie is happening with a whole new lineup of Avengers, which is pretty exciting. And it's actually even more exciting news that we'll continue to speculate on throughout the rest of this list. In at number 9, Hulkling. Word on the street is that Marvel is casting for Teddy Altman aka Hulkling for an upcoming project that we can only hope is the new Avengers team. Based on a report from Geeks Worldwide, this young Avenger should be joining the cast of WandaVision at some point. The other reason why there is good speculation for Hulkling to be joining the new Avengers in regards to the MCU is the upcoming release of the new Avengers Empire comic. In the comic, Hulkling will lead as the star coming to end the beef between his people, the Kree, and the Skrulls. The fact that this comic book release date is lining up so perfectly with an intro to the MCU means we are hopeful that Teddy will finally get his shot. In at number 8, Songbird. Her real name is Melissa Gold. She was a troubled runaway from an alcoholic father and a mother that was locked in prison. Due to her needing to survive on the streets, Melissa developed a hard edge to her personality that she would later use to her advantage when becoming a professional wrestler, the Screaming Mimi. Her transition to the new Avengers was a bit of a bumpy road to say the least. Under the supervision of John Garrett, Songbird infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. as a double agent. When her cover was finally blown though, she admitted her betrayal and thus became a triple agent after siding with Bobby DaCosta. Still a good member to the new Avengers. In at number 7, Squirrel Girl. Her real name is Doreen Green, and whether you like it or not, she is a valued member of the new Avengers. Moving away from the MCU for a moment, Squirrel Girl undoubtedly has a big fan base and has proved her worth many times. She is a former member of the Great Lakes Avengers, and when Luke Cage and Jessica Jones needed a babysitter, they hired her. I mean, bit of a slap in the face considering all that she has done in the comic books, but hey, she's still considered to be a new Avenger team member. In at number 6, Enigma. Also known as Pod and now Pod 2, Jokinen was an ethnically Finnish Norwegian girl. Due to her proximity of the Pod system armor crash landing, she was bonded to the suit and remained in a cocoon that was later discovered by the Advanced Idea Mechanics, or AIM for short. At first she quickly defeated the Avengers, but soon she was captured by them before Bobby DaCosta took over AIM. Over time and after some successful missions, Pod would become Sunspot's bodyguard and member of the new Avengers. Dr. Tony Ho, whom Amanda mentioned on the first part, became increasingly fascinated with Pod and even started to fall in love with the person inside of that armor. How sweet. In at number 5, Power Man. His real name is Victor Alvarez, and he was born and raised in the brutal world of Hell's Kitchen, New York City. As a child, Victor's father was a criminal and therefore sent to Seagate Prison as a result. So he didn't exactly have great role models per se, other than his mother that raised him. After the Mighty Avengers were shut down, Power Man along with White Tiger followed each other to join the newly rebranded AIM team, which would in part become the new Avengers. Victor would fight side by side with this team for many adventures, but ultimately he felt that he was neglecting his home neighborhood for far too long. So we may not see much of Victor Alvarez in terms of MCU, but he definitely had a great stint with the new Avengers. And maybe he'll come back, who knows? Just speculation. In at number 4, Wiccan. Billy Kaplan had an interaction with the Avengers at a very early age. While he was dealing with bullies at his school, Billy turned to the Avengers mansion in seek of help. He briefly met his hero, the Scarlet Witch, who told him that he could take care of himself, and boy oh boy did he take care of himself. I mean, Billy chose to stand up to his bully right when his electrokinetic powers started to emerge. With powers like this, he was already set to follow in the footsteps of Doctor Strange, becoming the next Sorcerer Supreme. In the comic books at least, Kaplan and Strange meet when Doctor Strange enters a dimension wherein all past, present, and future sorcerers have gathered. Aside from that, Kaplan was a full-time superhero as part of Roberto's team of New Avengers. In at number 3, Kate Bishop. Much like how Billy Kaplan was following in the footsteps of Doctor Strange, Kate Bishop was the third character in the Marvel comic books to take on the Hawkeye mantle following Clint Barton. Allegedly, she will also be a featured character in the upcoming Disney Plus series Hawkeye, which makes perfect sense if you're priming her character to join the New Avengers. Throughout these series, it's believed that Barton will train Kate Bishop following the events of Endgame. Seeing as though he's become Ronin, this leaves the Hawkeye position wide open. Some have also speculated that Lila Barton will essentially be the new Kate Bishop, but at the end of the day, that's up to Marvel's writing team. In at number 2, Iron Lad. With the introduction of Harley Keener in Iron Man 3 and then a brief appearance at the funeral in Endgame, it's clear that they were warming audiences up for Iron Lad. Especially considering the brave sacrifice that Tony Stark made, the opening for the next Iron Man is available and the only possible prospect to fill in is Harley. Now clearly the comic books are much different than the storyline that the MCU is putting forth, but they rarely do stuff like this for no good reason. So with that in mind and all of the advanced tech that we saw Harley working on as a kid, it's clear to see that Iron Lad will be one of the newest Avengers. Last but not least, on our number 1 spot, Shang-Chi. From the moment Shang was born, he would be raised to become a deadly assassin by his father. Even in his sleep, he would be subjected to alchemy and a virtual reality feed that taught techniques while he slept. Following the events of Avengers vs. X-Men, Captain America and Iron Man were looking at expanding their team to make it bigger and stronger than ever before. This saw the addition of Shang-Chi, who was one of the first picks for this new Avengers initiative. In terms of the MCU, he is already set to star in his own solo film called Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Number 10, Ava Ayala. From her introduction in the comics, Ava Ayala was pretty much always involved with the Avengers. She possesses the White Tiger amulet, which grants her her powers. She enrolled in the Avengers Academy and was later declared an official Avengers member during her time with Luke Cage's Mighty Avengers in Volume 2 of the series named after the team, during the Infinity event. Fun fact, if you exclude Doc Ock's Superior Spider-Man, the Mighty Avengers would be considered to be an all-black superhero team. I think that's pretty cool. Number 9, Samuel Guthrie. Young Samuel Guthrie is also known as Nova, though he isn't the first one to take up that mantle. There have actually been many Novas, as Nova is short for Nova Centurion, and Centurion is a rank in the Nova Corps, which is a Xandarian military group who are mostly used in space exploration missions. Sam was the son of Jesse Alexander, who himself was a Nova Centurion. Sam ended up taking up his father's mantle after his father appeared to go missing. Sam would later end up crash landing on Earth and warning the Avengers of the incoming Phoenix Force during the Avengers vs. X-Men event. Siding with Avengers and doing his best to help them in their fight would grant Sam the opportunity to join the team. In Avengers vs. X-Men Volume 1 Issue 12, Thor offered him a membership to the team. While Nova admitted he felt he didn't do much to help, he was honored and accepted, pending his mother's approval of course. Cause you know, Nova's a youngster. He's gotta ask mom. Number 8, Blue Marvel. For those who aren't familiar with Adam Brashear, he is a brilliant engineer and physicist who ended up getting superpowers similar to Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel. He can absorb energy as well, but not quite in the same way. He can only absorb antimatter energy or energy from the negative zone, basically energy not of our world or universe. So he typically does a lot of space fighting as a result, cause it's kinda where he's the most useful. He's also sometimes known for his romantic relationship with Spectrum, aka Monica Rambeau. He wasn't acknowledged as an official member of the Avengers until the self-titled Mighty Avengers series Volume 2 out of 2012. Luke Cage, the team leader, acknowledged him as an Avenger during the Infinity event when he was helping the team. Though we would later find out that Adam had actually been part of a team predating Luke's from the 1970s, also referred to as the Mighty Avengers. But this wouldn't happen till issue 11 of the series, whereas he was welcomed to the team officially in issue 3, in regards to comic book timeline. So it was in the past, but it also happened after. You know, just normal retcons of sprinkling in more flavor. Number 7, Jane Foster. After Thor found he could no longer lift his hammer, Jane began to hear the call from Mjolnir. She had Heimdall take her to it and claim the hammer for herself. She was deemed worthy enough to pick it up and became Thor. Lady Thor, that is. Despite being diagnosed with cancer and finding out that her transformation into Thor wiped away all the progress of her chemo at the time, Jane continued to perform acts of heroism as Thor. Cause she's cool and brave like that. She has joined the Avengers team in a few instances, one being when she joined the Reformed team in the all-new, all-different Avengers series. Number 6, Miles Morales. Miles Morales is the Spider-Man of Earth 1610. He was mentored by Peter Parker of Earth 616 and eventually also ended up joining Earth 616 Avengers as well. He joined the team in the all-new, all-different Avengers series. Miles found himself tangled up with Iron Man and Sam Wilson, who was Captain America at the time, and a ragtag crew of heroes in an attempt to take down the Chitauri warlord known as Warbringer. The team wasn't referring to themselves as the Avengers yet, but of course, as the series is named, that they would later be referred to as the Avengers. You're Avengers now, whether you like it or not. Number 5. Kamala Khan. I was just going to straight up title her as Miss Marvel because, I mean, that's who she is to me now, but Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel was part of the Avengers way before what I would consider new, and I didn't want to cause any unnecessary confusion. So, much respect to Kamala as Miss Marvel, but for clarity, we're just going to call her by her civilian name here, Kamala Khan. I really love Kamala Khan as an Avenger as well. Kamala also joined up with the Avengers in the all-new, all-different Avengers series, also appearing in issue 1, where we saw Miles and Nova as well. The three heroes would actually later leave the Avengers to start their own superhero team known as the Champions. After helping to take down Warbringer, Stark would offer Kamala a place on the Avengers team, which of course she happily accepted. Number 4. Nadia Van Dyne. Nadia Van Dyne was originally just Nadia. She was the daughter of Hank Pym and his first wife, Maria Travoia. How did she end up with Janet Van Dyne's last name? Well, she asked her if she could use it. She felt she knew and admired Van Dyne more than her parents, whom she really had never known. In fact, Nadia was actually kidnapped at a young age and raised in Russia in the Red Room, where she was trained to become a spy, which is why we hadn't heard of her until much later. She eventually escaped her fate as a Red Room agent and decided to seek out her stepmother Janet and her father's teammates, the Avengers, after learning that her father had been killed in the fight against Ultron. Nadia also took up the codename Wasp. Following the events of Civil War II, she ended up joining the Avenger team herself. Janet and the rest of the team ended up warming to her, and Janet revealed that she actually approved of Nadia adopting her mantle. Aw, cute. Number 3. Dr. Tony Ho. After her father died saving Tony Stark's life, Tony resented Stark and strived to be better than him. I just realized this will be confusing because both of these people are named Tony. She studied programming and engineering at Caltech and ended up earning 3 doctorates by the age of 20. Her time with the Avengers began on Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot's team of Avengers, AIM. Da Costa changed the acronym to stand for Avengers Idea Mechanics. She has appeared in the new Avengers comics and eventually left AIM to join the US Avengers and ended up taking up the mantle of Iron Patriot. Tony creates her own armored combat suits similar to Iron Man's, which she refers to as rescue armor. She refers to them as rescue armor probably because they're all non-lethal as well. That's kind of her thing. She's all about non-lethal fighting, keeping things safe. Number 2. Ghost Rider. Robbie Reyes is the Ghost Rider we are talking about this time. He was first introduced in the all-new Ghost Rider and is a car mechanic by day who street races at night in an effort to get money to help him and his brother move out of their rough neighborhood. He ends up possessed by the vengeful spirit of his uncle Eli and becomes Ghost Rider. Eventually, Robbie joins up with the Avengers. You can see him fight alongside the team in the new Avengers comic series out of 2018 to 2019 Volume 8. At one point, he even becomes the heart of an event where he is granted the powers of the other Avengers so that he can eventually go up against and hopefully take on what appears to be the Dark Celestials. Appears to be anyways. I know. What a story, right? He's also just a really sweet older brother. Also, cars. Number 1. Voyager. Vini Gost is the daughter of Grandmaster Endwi Gost. She originally used her powers to infiltrate the Avengers, inserting herself into their memories to make them believe she was a long-lost founding member of the team known as Valerie Vector. Voyager did that for her dad, Endwi Gost, to help him protect his title of Grandmaster, basically to help guarantee a winning wager on a contest he had gambled his title on with her uncle Challenger, who sought to win the bet and usurp her father. He used to be the Grandmaster before. Anyways, it's a lot of history, so we'll skip that. In the end, her true identity was revealed by Jarvis. After being inspired by the Avengers' true heroics, she decided to switch sides, defecting and seeking to help them and Earth instead. In the end, they offered Voyager a membership. Though she declined, she did agree to return to reclaim her membership at a later time. And in the series Avengers No Road Home, she is acknowledged as an Avenger on the character intro page.
First, let's talk about Swordsman. The Swordsman is one of the most badass and underrated villains to ever join the Avengers. The story of how the swordsman joined the team is so crazy because the dude basically bullied his way onto the team. You see, the swordsman already had an extensive resume as a villain before he decided he wanted to become an Avenger, and he didn't really do it because he was remorseful for his past actions or anything like that. In fact, he only wanted to join the team because he was secretly in cahoots with the Mandarin and was set on infiltrating the team. But instead of pretending to be nice and putting on a sorry face, he actually just did what he does best, throwing down with the Avengers and beating up everybody, even threatening to throw Cap over the edge of the building, basically bullying the Avengers into letting him join. That's right, this dude strong-armed his way onto the Avengers team. Now it's surprising that nobody really knows about the swordsman because he's just truly badass, but once he joined the team, however, his intentions changed and he finally did have that change of heart after realizing that the Avengers are actually pretty decent. So instead of committing to the betrayal of the Avengers, he just hightailed it out of there. Now fast forward 8 years and guess who's back on the scene? The swordsman, now with a legit invitation to join the Earth's mightiest heroes. If there's any villain who earned his spot on the team, it's definitely this guy. Next, let's talk about Sabretooth, who's well known as one of the most brutally animalistic villains to have ever walked the Earth. But all of that changed thanks to the Axis event, a spell which flipped the moralities of heroes and villains. Now, Sabretooth had joined the heroes' ranks before, but this was the very first time he did so with genuine intentions of doing good, embracing a heroic role and allying himself with the Avengers' cause. Now, unlike most villains who went back to their usual ways once the spell was over, the morality inverting effects actually didn't fade away for Sabretooth. He continued as a changed character, now an integral part of the Avengers Unity division. Unfortunately though, his heroic nature wouldn't last forever as he became evil once again after sacrificing himself to revive his son. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. Next up is Dr. Octopus. There have been a slew of villains who have joined the Avengers under the guise of a hero while secretly harboring evil intentions, but Dr. Otto Octavius stands out as one of the very few villains who genuinely wanted to do some good as a hero, joining the Avengers while he was secretly in control of Spider-Man's body during the whole Superior Spider-Man arc. Now, while he did try his best at being a better Spider-Man than Peter Parker ever was, deep down, at the end of the day, he was still the arrogant and rage-filled Doc Ock, and so he tended to take things way too far, like that time he straight up punched the Scorpion's jaw clean off, or his tendency to not really care about ending the lives of his villains to keep him down. This Spider-Man was a much more lethal version than most we've ever seen. Now, Doc Ock's stint as Spidey didn't last forever, however, as a sliver of Peter's consciousness still resided in his mind and fought desperately to take his body back. Eventually, after a humbling moment where he realized he wasn't a better Spider-Man, he sacrificed himself so that Peter Parker could return. Next is Vernaki. The new Avengers run was most notable for revealing that many of the Avengers superheroes had been secretly replaced by shape-shifting Skrulls for basically the entire time. It was during the Secret Invasion arc that it was revealed that the literal queen of the Skrulls herself had been secretly impersonating Spider-Woman for years. This meant that a Skrull had been the founding member of the new Avengers, serving as a double agent against Hydra, and even siding with the government-sanctioned Avengers during Civil War so that she could get closer to Tony Stark. The revelation of her true identity was a jaw-dropper, marking the climax of Secret Invasion. Now, despite the fact that she had been heroic for the most part, she was eventually ended by Norman Osborn, who's definitely not known for his subtlety, putting an end to the Skrull Queen's masquerade with a bullet through the brain, concluding her chapter in Avengers history. Next up is Magneto. While nowadays Magneto is considered more of an anti-hero than a straight-up bad guy, his villainous roots definitely run deep. He's fought against the X-Men probably about as many times as he's joined them, give or take a few. But it's not very often that you see him teaming up with the Avengers, however, given his mutant superiority complex and how he detests humans. His stint as an Avenger happened during the whole Axis event that I mentioned earlier, the huge spell that flipped the moralities of many characters, turning bad guys good and vice versa. Now, feeling all good and moral, Magneto became one of the founding members of the Astonishing Avengers in a bid to stop the Red Skull. Putting aside his hate for humans, Magneto teamed up with Steve Rogers and even Thor as they would go on to tackle the rest of the Avengers and X-Men who had turned evil as part of the spell. However, after the spell was reversed, Magneto went back to being a human hater. Next is Wonder Man. Wonder Man is the original Avengers villain turned hero. Gifted with extraordinary powers by the notorious Masters of Evil, Simon Williams was trained for a mission specifically to infiltrate the Avengers, becoming the Masters of Evil's inside man. At first, Wonder Man's initial allegiance was, of course, to his villainous mentors. However, a moral dilemma sparked an internal conflict within him. In a surprising turn of events, he chose to betray the Masters of Evil, aligning himself with the Avengers fully to thwart the Masters of Evil's sinister plans. While this twist of fate secured the Avengers' victory, it ended up costing Wonder Man his life, as in a heroic act of self-sacrifice, he went down fighting for the greater good. Now thankfully, however, Wonder Man's story doesn't end there, because like most characters in comic book history, Wonder Man just couldn't stay dead, and he later returned to the land of the living, retaining his moral allegiance to the Avengers. From a villainous pawn to a fully fledged Avenger, at number 4 is Moondragon. Now many would consider Moondragon to be a morally ambiguous character as opposed to an outright villain, but I mean come on, her very first appearance had her take on the name Madame MacEvil, for crying out loud. She was known for orchestrating villainous plots like, for example, hijacking Iron Man's armor and forcing him to fight against Namor in battle just so she could see who was stronger. Now on the other hand, she was responsible for giving many superpowered beings their powers so that they could fight against Thanos, but everyone she helped create ended up becoming supervillains anyway, so yeah, pretty ambiguous. Now surprisingly, Moondragon got a shot at redemption and joined the Avengers on a probationary basis. In the Celestial Madonna saga, she joined the Avengers alongside heroes like Beast and Mantis. But she wasn't too comfortable there, and she eventually bailed before officially becoming Avenger, which was actually a relief for many of the superheroes on the team. Unlike some reformed baddies who stuck around for a while, Moondragon's run with the team didn't even last 20 issues, after which she went off to mentor Hellcat. Next up is Avenger X, the only villain on this list who actually started as a hero, but her deep secret about the insidious natures of her powers led her to eventually betray the team. During the days of Cap's kooky quartet, the Avengers welcomed Avenger X, an obscure member with a unique power, amplifying her teammates' abilities, which everybody thought was great. A support character on the Avengers that gives everybody a free boost? Well, not so fast, because this power comes with a catch. In order to fuel her teammates, she had to secretly drain the life force from others. Now, initially, she had the best of intentions as she genuinely believed she was making her team stronger. However, as the days went by, her methods took a dark turn. Fearing that her secret draining powers might get out, she began sowing the seeds of internal dissent among the Avengers, attempting to turn the Avengers against each other. The climax unfolded in a dramatic showdown against the Quartet, where Avenger X became dangerously close to triumph. However, the original Avengers made a surprise return, teaming up with their successors to take down the now villainous Avenger X. At number 2 is Quicksilver, son of Magneto and member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, though it was later revealed that the Maximoffs were actually given their powers by the High Evolutionary in his mission to speed up human evolution, but that's besides the point. Anyways, Pietro and his sister Wanda had a change of heart when he realized that he and his sister were pawns for their father, just tools of destruction against the X-Men. From that point on, they ditched the villain gig, opting for a life where they could use their powers for themselves and nobody else. When the Avengers had a hiring spree, Quicksilver saw an opportunity. Convincing his sister, the duo joined the Avengers, making up half of the second roster. Skipping out on settling scores with the X-Men, Pietro and Scarlet Witch proved their mettle in battle, even though this Avengers roster was initially looked down upon and dubbed Cap's kooky quartet. Although Quicksilver's stint with the Avengers was short-lived, he left a mark showcasing his superhero side. And at number 1 is Vision, who started off as a synthetic villain who had a heart of gold. Vision, the android initially designed by Ultron to be the Avengers' worst nightmare. However, if it were not for Ultron deciding to use the brainwaves of Simon Williams in Vision's programming, because if you guys recall, Simon Williams is actually the Wonder Man from earlier in this list, someone who's known for flipping sides in Avengers infiltration missions. And that seemed to be Ultron's fatal flaw, and so during the epic showdown between Ultron and the Avengers, Vision was unleashed to take down our beloved heroes. However, this metallic marvel had a change of heart. While initially following Ultron's orders, Vision couldn't ignore his moral compass embedded within his artificial being. And in a turn of events, Vision turned the tables on his creator, breaking free from Ultron's control. This newfound independence led Vision to switch sides, aligning himself with the Avengers to take Ultron down. And lo and behold, the Avengers welcomed him with open arms because, well, I mean, of course they did. He's the most powerful synthezoid to ever walk the earth. So from that moment on, Vision became a long-standing member, contributing to countless victories against countless adversaries.